Howdy everyone, welcome to the Cast Gaming Channel, and I've got another Napoleonic Total War 3 mod replay. It's a 4v4, and it's going to be 4 French corps versus a mix of Austrian and Russian corps today. And this is a new map for me as well. I haven't seen this map before. It's an interesting map because there's this hill in the center which Russia is currently occupying, and it is a large elevation compared to the rest of the map, which I'm kind of surprised. So and then just looking at it initially, it looks like it would be a difficult position to take. And on the other side here is another house, followed by another elevation, another hilly area on the map. And just looking at this, just looking at it and thinking about it for a minute, I was just kind of going over strategies in my head. And I think there's 2 viable strategies for this map potentially. One is to kind of, if you're starting on the center point here, which the Maecenas Corps is starting out in, you would basically hold this position for a little bit, allow your allies to come up behind you and to the side, and then take this road to the left and try to outflank the forces on the hill. And then you would essentially, once your forces on the left have started pushing up, you would push up in the center together and try to 3v1 or 3v2 this center hill. The other option that I think would be viable for this map is on the right side, is have your armies converge on the right side, maybe avoid the hill, take this house, push forward through this forest or along this road here, try and take out the first army if you can, or the second army that comes and reinforces. That way it's another 3v2 scenario, which maybe might fare a little bit better because there's not so much of an elevation on this section of the map. And if you have to fight on this side, well, then you have the advantage where your army is in the elevated position. So that's just kind of my thoughts on this map. And it looks like France is going to go with my initial assessment, which is holding this center hill, having the reinforcing armies try to maneuver and outflank the defending armies on the large hill in the center of the map, because the large hill has a 2-pointer on this. This is an LOC game, whereas the the house on the other side of the map is only a single pointer. And there's also a 1-pointer here. If you were to hold these this point and the farmhouse on the other side of the map along with the initial points, France basically wouldn't have to do anything. They'd have enough points in order to win the game if they're able to take the farmhouse. So it just kind of depends. Depends on how you're feeling, how aggressive you are, and what your personal thoughts are. But as there's kind of a lull here in the battle, I just wanted to take a moment and say that I'm going to be hosting, or I'm sorry, I should say I'm going to be sponsoring a tournament to celebrate the kickoff of my channel, and it's going to be a 4v4 tournament, and I'd like to have at least 6 to 10 teams participate. And first prize will consist of $100 for the winning team, and then I'd also like to interview the winning team afterwards. So just kind of get your thoughts on what your strategies are typically, what you like to do, what maps you like to play, what armies you think are the best, maybe some tips for beginners, and also just kind of learn a little bit about the community members. So if you're interested, some more information will be coming about that, and if the tournament's successful, I might hold another tournament later on down the road. So keep an eye out for that. So this battle's kind of starting out slow. Mostly just people taking their positions. Both armies are just kind of getting their cav out, trying to scout each other's forces, strengths, positions, see what maneuvering is like. I don't think the coalition is going to be doing a lot of maneuvering on this map. I think they're just going to be doing their best to hold this hill. You can see that Russia already has this. Well, of course, it's going to disappear on me, but they had this artillery battery on the hill. It had about 4 guns on it. France has only got a 2-gun battery over here. So I don't think it's going to be... I don't think France is very eager to kind of attack this hill by themselves. And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Attacking this hill by yourself against a good gun emplacement is not a very smart strategy. But you can see France on this side is maneuvering. This is Land's Corps, and he's just trying to push up his cavalry here along with his infantry to get in place, and he's getting some support from Messina, and that's going to help kind of push this cavalry back, allow France to outmaneuver and try to outflank and take this side of the hill, because there isn't much that Massena's corps can do at the moment. All they can really do is just kind of hold their position, wait for Lands to get their army set, their corps set, and just pray that the artillery from both Russia and Austria doesn't take out too many before they get a chance to advance. And then here on the other side, Ney's French corps is taking the hill. This is a good idea. You always want to take the high ground. I know it's probably common sense at this point, and probably a famous Star Wars meme that you've seen a million times, but that doesn't make it any less true. And I'm kind of surprised here. Austria already has its infantry here at the house, and I know that they've taken this position, but I'm surprised that since they were here so early, that they actually didn't take this hill on the right side. I mean, that's what I would do. It may be that they felt they would have been too far out of position and too far away from their allies, so that they would have been separated, and maybe that's why they didn't take this. But the problem with just leaving your army in the center here is that, like, there's this huge height disparity, and you see that Ney's bringing up his guns here, which is really going to hurt the army. The other thing about this map too is that if there's only 2 armies on this hill, an option for the coalition would be to kind of abandon or leave a rear guard at this house, at this position, and then take your other 2 armies and just go after France, because you could essentially isolate this army from this one. and you have a whole forested area to protect yourselves, or at least slow down the advancements should either side decide to kind of go after them. And if France makes a maneuver here to pull its infantry to kind of try and outflank or match you, you can always pull take an army from here, take a few units here to support the outflanking. So it's kind of an interesting. I really like this map because, you know, it's got these points that I talked about earlier, but it's the development, the way that this battle is turning out is just, I like to always check out what opportunities I can see while the battle is forming. And if, again, on this side here, Lance Corps, along with, you know, his cavalry, is just trying to stretch out, threaten the flank of Austria. Austria doesn't look like it has too many units in position at the moment. Russia doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He's just going to defend this hill, as he's been doing the entire match. It looks like Lenz is finally in position, and he's got his artillery set up here, but this is going to be a difficult battle for the artillery because it's an uphill. This artillery is having to shoot uphill. Meanwhile, Austria's got an excellent position here where he can just, you know, he's on the higher elevation. He can take his time, shoot down. But the other thing is he has to be careful of cavalry charges from this side. So what I think is good on both sides here is that both of them have placed their artillery behind their infantry. That way it gives them a little bit more time to react. And I know I always talk about this, but you know, it's just a mistake I see so often of a lot of people will put their artillery on the line along with their infantry, and sometimes there's situations to do that, but for the most part I think it's smarter to just keep your artillery a little bit behind your infantry just for pure reaction time. Now it looks like Massena in the center is pushing forward to attack this hill, and he's doing it in kind of a delayed column, or a delayed attack. I forget exactly the term. There's a specific military term for this, which escapes my mind at the moment. But essentially the idea is to stagger your attack so that basically your opponent will have to respond to the initial attacking infantry, and then the subsequent infantry coming up will basically draw attention to the other side of the battlefield. So essentially, you want your opponent's attention here first, and then having your other infantry attack on the other side where the reinforcements might not be. There isn't much infantry on this left side for Austria. It looks like he's got a lot of his infantry in the center, and I'm not exactly sure why his infantry is kind of staggered like this. He's pushing up his infantry kind of by itself. He's not moving up his cav. I mean, I think his infantry is very vulnerable right now. But here we go. France is continuing to push forward, and this unit is just getting destroyed by this artillery on top of the hill. But what's good about this, what I like the aggressiveness of the French player. I like this military tactic being employed here. The other thing I like is that this Lance Corps notices that Austria's infantry is just kind of like centered here. It's not only is Austria's infantry kind of concentrated in the center, it's not really supporting Russia. Russia is moving its reinforcements over to the other side to protect its guns. And in doing so, it's leaving this gap here. Not only is there a gap, but there's also some protection from this house here in case Austria decides to move up his units. And so Lands is actually being able to outflank Russia's infantry here. And Russia can't move because it's being threatened in its center location by Massena's infantry. Meanwhile, we've got some Cav on the left here engaged in a square formation. He should really get him out of there, but it doesn't look like he's got time to do that. It may have been kind of a delaying tactic, or maybe a tactic to get Austria's attention to the other side of the map. You see Austria's not really moving up his infantry, and it looks like Russia's taking a lot of hits from the side here. Russia's taking a lot of casualties in a short amount of time. It's this infantry unit has taken a lot of has gotten a lot of cover from this house here. It's got protection from this larger unit that's probably in the trees right now. And it's going to start taking some fire here, but it's taken a while for Austria to move up. However, the left side is really going to have to make some things work here, because we see this unit's already at half strength. Russia's artillery units are still intact. The center here has got a big gap in it, which if Austria could take its dragoons or some cavalry here in the back, could easily charge either side right here. And I like that Austria has moved up its guns to protect the artillery, but they're getting outflanked. Not only are they getting outflanked, they're getting outshot here. And I think this infantry, like Russia's infantry, is just not enough. It's just not enough to hold back this side. There's this gap here, which is really why I think Austria and Russia really need to push their cavalry into these units to try and help out their infantry. And on this left side, this is extremely sneaky. You've got this artillery here shooting down this little narrow corridor. You've got some infantry here being able to shoot in this massive this massive line unit. The Imperial Guard looks like they were sneaking up their infantry units, and then they were going to go for a little push here. Meanwhile, this unit still has a protection in the house, even though they're getting shot at here a little bit from the flank. Russia's units this guys have lost about 90 men right here. This unit's lost about 40 men. They're just getting destroyed by this French infantry, and Austria's going in for a charge here along with its cavalry, and some infantry are getting in position. And they might be able to rout this. No, they're not going to. Okay. They were able to rout this infantry unit, but unfortunately they lost. Austria lost her grenadier unit in the process. And now there's a charge here by the Imperial Guard units. They're just trying to swarm this Austrian unit. And I think it's got Austria kind of taken off guard here. I don't think Austria was expecting this. They're not reacting well to it. And this is a grenadier unit, but these are Imperial Guard units, Imperial Guard grenadier units. There's artillery in the background, which is actually getting charged by Cav. This is a good play on the Austrian player. He was able to take out the artillery here that was moved up. There was a square formation, but it just wasn't enough. And the Imperial Guard is just going crazy against the Austrians. I think they're mad. And Austria is having a really, really hard time dealing with this. They've sent him some cavalry to try and stop the bleeding here. Some more infantry. And this is just a mess in the middle. France is repositioning some troops to try and outflank this one line unit that's shooting into the back of the Imperial Guard. And the Lands Corps is moving up on this Austrian unit. They're going to be able to shoot them from the side. Take a little bit of a bird's eye view here on what's going on. So France has shifted a lot of its forces to the left and into the center towards this town. And that's a fantastic move. Massena's Corps here has been able to hold the center, and it looks like they're really putting the hurt on Russia. And they may have taken out the guns here. Yeah, they took out the guns. This large Russian battery is gone. And on the right side really hasn't engaged at all. I think this is a mistake. It looks like France has got a lot of its troops kind of spread out here. Austria needs to be pushing on this right side because they need to defeat this army and then go help out their allies. And they need to do it right now because this flank seems to be crumbling. Yeah, Russia's gone. There's looks like there was a cavalry charge against dragoons to the Russian center. They've been able to roll up a lot of these units. They're going to continue to just decimate Russia in the center. There's a cav charge in the back by some heavy cav from the Imperial Guard. Austria has managed to shift over a couple units, it looks like, but their artillery is still out of position. Their artillery should have been moved over here a long time ago. The Imperial Guard is still here, still engaged in combat. Looks like it's retreating a little bit. I think they're probably exhausted. Appears to be the case. And they need to fall back some more, rest up. Because they're just getting shot in the flank here. What a mess. Look at all the bodies here in the center. And look at all those bodies. Austria went in for another charge against the Imperial Guard. I'm not sure if that's a smart move. He needs to get his cavalry out of there, or he needs to get it engaged against the Imperial Guard infantry. And now France they have just swept this hill. They were able to defeat Russia. They were able to whittle down the troops, able to get this artillery. There was a nice charge here from some dragoons that were able to help destroy the Russian line. Now Austria is by himself. He's by himself and having to deal with two armies instead of one. So most likely he's going to retreat back to the house here. and just try and hold as long as he can. Let's take a look on the other side here, see if there's still anything going. And now Austria has finally started to push up. I think they realized that their allies were in trouble. And that they needed to start taking the hill. Alright, Chance, volley. Now, Austria needs to keep being aggressive here. They need to take out these guns. I mean, they have the numbers here to just sweep this infantry on the hill. They have the numbers to kind of isolate these French units from the right side and just push up. I mean, there's only 4 infantry units on this side to 9, potentially 10 Austrian units that could just run up here, engage these guys. And we've got a cav charge here. I think this is an attempt to delay Austria from pushing. And they're doing a great job. He was able to rout this unit, only lost 5 men. Really was able to morale shock another unit here. He's able to sweep this line. And here's another excellent move. Another good job. What he's doing here is he's taken the units that he's following up on the cav charge, and he's going to basically gain the local superiority over this unit, which has to have its attention at these dragoons. He could be able to fire one-on-one, or at least these guys are out at get a couple volleys out while these guys are trying to reposition. You know, this side really needs to be more aggressive. I mean, they need to just run up to these guns right here, push these men. They need to be using this I don't know why this infantry is just sitting here in the back. They could be using these dragoons along with this infantry to go after this artillery or pushing up on this flank. I'm not really sure why Austria is not being more aggressive. I mean, he's got more units. They're not even engaged with this French infantry. Come on, gents. Oh, he's going to retreat. And I can understand this is a good move. This is a good tactical move on Ney's Corps' part. You know, he saw that Austria was trying to get in position. He doesn't have the men to hold this. So he's just going to retreat, try to give time for his allies, who are most likely mopping up with the other side of the map, to try and get to him. And Austria's got a unit retreating already on this side. I'm very surprised. Austria really, I keep saying it, but they need to be more aggressive. They're just letting their infantry take hits from this artillery. There's no cavalry back here or additional infantry to back up this gun emplacement. And if they can just mount, they take these 2 units or these 3 units and just charge this gun instead of sitting here and getting shot by the artillery, they'd be in a much better position. They're not going to be able to accomplish much because they can barely see the guns on this hill. Now they're having to retreat on this side due to the guns. At very least, if you're Austria and you don't want to attack these guns, you need to be shifting your troops over to this side of the map, into the center or into the right side, so that you can defeat your opponents faster. If you can just sweep this side of the hill where the guns can't reach you, well then you can take out France a lot easier. And I understand. I totally understand. When you're in the heat of battle, you're not always seeing everything. You're trying to make sure that all of your units are okay. So I can understand it if someone doesn't necessarily see all the technical advantages at the beginning. But here we have Austria has done a great move here. They've charged in their dragoons against this Swiss unit that can't form square. It's delayed this Swiss unit from rejoining the rest of the infantry, and now Austria was able to push up his infantry, which ultimately routed this Swiss infantry unit. And now Austria is going to go for another charge. He had an opportunity to take out the general, but it looks like he's being gentlemanly about it. And of course, as soon as I say that, he goes back after the generals. So, not so gentlemanly after all, I suppose. Either way, this Austrian cav has done a good job. He's delaying what's left of this French force in order for him to defeat his opponent. But he's still got another cav unit here, which he could be used to, which he could use to charge these units again. He could be using the cav to charge these units, which looks like none of these units can form square. Austria finally charged in another cav unit to take out the guns on top of the hill. Unfortunately, he should have done this way sooner. Should have pushed up his infantry sooner. Maybe used it as a screen. Charged the infantry into the guns, or he could have just had a little gap to run his cavalry through. His cav on this side has an opportunity to go after these units right here, or at least slow them down. I'm not really sure why he's not taking advantage of it, but France wasn't able to hold this position, but that's okay. His numbers have dwindled significantly. He doesn't have any more cav, and he's just retreating at this moment, which is, this French player is playing this side perfectly. He took the high ground. He had the guns on the right elevation. He was able to countercharge where it was needed, and now he's retreating in an orderly fashion in order to keep his army intact. And also, it's a good delay. It's a good delay because if you see here on the left side, I mean, France still has not completely defeated Austria. Austria has taken possession of the house. They put a lot of casualties in the French infantry units, and they're gonna lose this side, but they are delaying, giving Austria on the other side of the map some time to defeat what's left of that French army, and maybe, just maybe, it'll be enough for the intact Austrian army to defeat what's left of France. And so now France is just repositioning his armies, trying to get as I was saying, France was trying to reposition his armies just to take out what's left of Austria here, which is not much. Austria's got some cover here by the house. If I was Austria, I'd try and move these units. Into this kind of stone wall here, or at least, try and link this up with the side of the house. But either way, it's not looking good for for Austria. And France is going in for charge here. They've held the Austrian units, the grenadiers, in place in this line infantry, and following up with a second cav attack. They're routing the grenadiers. Most likely they're going to rout this line infantry unit. If Austria can, he should take these infantry units and do his best to just kind of hit the flank of this French cav unit. Unfortunately, it's just Austria just doesn't have the numbers in order to defeat this combined French force here. And Austria is just about done here. And take a look at the bodies on this hill. Take a look. What is always amazing to me in this game is when you have giant line battles, you can see the bodies just lying on the ground, just everywhere. And because there's so many bodies, they match up with where the lines are, which I just think is a cool little touch to show the kind of like to immerse yourself in kind of the Napoleonic battles. And again, if you remember earlier in the match, there was the Imperial Guard that had a huge, just massive infantry charge here on this side of the hill, and you can just see all the bodies again with the horses and the dead men strewn all across the ground here. And so we'll see if there's anything left of this French army, if they're still retreating on the other side. Yeah, he's still got a few units left, but it looks like Austria may be able to cut off some of these retreating forces here. And they're just going to try and make a final stand at this farmhouse. It'll take them a bit, which is good. It's good. I mean, this French player, commanding Ney, has just done an excellent job. He's done everything he should have been doing. You know, his whole goal was just to delay. I believe his goal was just to delay the enemy as long as they possibly could in order for these three French corps to be able to sweep up this hill, take out whatever's left. And then, you know, hopefully his corps would still be intact. And then they'd come and support his corps. Another thing I like about this game, and I'll say it over and over again, which I probably have already, is that this game is so much different from a lot of real-time strategies that are out there. A lot of real-time strategies today are about kind of generating as much or as many units as you can. They're about build orders. They're about you know, who can spam more units. And I think there's something that kind of it gets lost. It's those games, while I like modern real-time strategy games, I just think concentrating on build orders and whatever the current meta is, I think something gets lost. I'm not sure if I'm articulating it correctly, but what I like about it is that what I like about Napoleon Total War is that, yeah, build orders and are important. Recognizing whatever the current meta is important. But overall, what's really important is your ability to recognize the situation, use the limited troops that you have to the best of their ability, and then reacting to whatever the situation becomes. So this gentleman, an example would be this French gentleman this French player was holding this ground, and then what he saw, once he was losing that ground, he ordered a tactical retreat so that this Austrian army was completely occupied by his army. And now he's only got 2-3 units left, but Austria has gone all the way to the other side of the map. They're not able to link with anybody that was left. Their entire attention was focused on him. Now, Austria seems to have left a rear guard. Oh, and here's something I don't like. When you see this in a game, don't do this. Do not do this. This is called, you see where the infantry here is inside of the artillery units. That is considered cheating in this mod, and it's called embedding. So you need to get your troops. Okay, so it looks like he's shifting his troops. And maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't paying attention where it was lined up, but don't do that. It's like I said, it's considered cheating, it's bad sportsmanship, and you might get kicked and from the Discord, or you might get blacklisted. Nobody will want to play with you if you do that. But as I was saying, real-time strategy games, you know, they just don't compare to the kind of like realistic military tactics, I think, that are prevalent in Napoleonic Total War. Which is why I just love this game so darn much. I love that you have to outthink your opponent. I love that sometimes the situation calls for defending a hill. Sometimes the situation calls for outmaneuvering your opponent. Sometimes the situation calls for following up on a cavalry charge, or knowing when to initiate a cavalry charge, or holding a unit and outflanking one side. And it's just so much more like a pure military tactical strategy game than any other game that I've played. And me personally, you know, my strategies tend to revolve around attempting to outmaneuver my opponent. So if I was on, which is why when I initially talked about my strategy for this map, was the first things that I saw were the right side. I saw where the initial units were going to be placed, and I saw, after looking at the terrain, I saw where you could outmaneuver your opponents, get the numerical superiority, and basically your best shot at kind of outflanking, outmaneuvering your opponent. And that's where my mind goes. It doesn't go to what the meta is. It doesn't go to, okay, where can I just where can I just have a mass cav charge? It goes to, okay, how can I position my armies such that I will have the advantage? How can I best use the terrain to my advantage? How can I get around my armies? How can I outflank them? And that's just the way I operate. It's just the way that I like to play. It's just the way that I think. I don't know. I haven't discussed this with any other players, but I am kind of curious how they form their tactical strategies when they look at a map. Is it just like, okay, I've gotten beaten on this map so many times, I know exactly what I need to do, so whether or not it comes from experience? Do they just kind of like analyze the battlefield the same way, or are they just kind of like, okay, I just need to mass cav all the time? Do they play more towards the meta? Those types of things. But anyway, enough of me kind of rambling on about tactics and strategy here. What's kind of surprises me here is that there's a rear guard for Austria. But I don't know if this is necessarily where I would have placed my artillery or placed my rear guard. I mean, yeah, he's got a little bit of a height, and he's in line with the house. But he's only got 3 units here. If I was Austria, I wouldn't have sent so many units over to this side of the map. You know, I would have just kind of ignored. I would have just left France alone in this house. I would have repositioned my guys on top of where Ney's corps was initially at to have the height advantage. Because if France essentially has to come to you. You don't have to engage them. If you have the artillery and France doesn't have any, where you have the superior artillery, you can just place it up on this hill. You have the height advantage. If France wants to defeat you, they have to come to you. Now, I realize in order to win this game, Austria basically needs to confront France somehow. Or it has to capture points and hold them. But it's unlikely to do that against 2 French armies. And we've got a cav charge coming in here against these guns. Looks like they're at least able to touch them. Unfortunately, the heavy cav was routed in the process. But they did a decent job here. You can't move your guns now. Austria can't move the guns. So they're kind of stuck in this position if they want to use them. France is sending in another heavy cav unit. The Imperial Guard is still around. Unfortunately, they're probably going to get shot in the back by this line infantry unit, and they're facing 3 Austrian cav. And as good as the Imperial Guard is, they just can't take them all on. It's kind of weird. Austria apparently is firing their guns, but it says it's routing here, so I don't know if it's just a glitch in the game or what's going on. It's not looking good for Austria. They're heavily outnumbered. Bonaparte charging in. He's not afraid of anything. Except maybe an entire unit of line infantry. Get out of there, Bonaparte. Flee for your life. Man, I'm surprised. I am shocked that they did not hit a single man in that volley. That's crazy. France finally getting into position here. Looks like they're gonna be able to overwhelm this Austrian line infantry. And Austria should have been. They should have placed their infantry units in this clump of trees here to kind of limit the casualties. The other option might have been to stack some infantry in this house here, which there's some musket fire going off. So they have some infantry in there. I don't know if they can fit any more units inside. These guys should really be retreating right now so that they can link up with the rest of the Austrian units. But France is going in for a charge here to see if they can finish off what's left of the Austrians. Another charge here followed by more infantry coming in. There's just no way that Austria can hold against all this infantry. Austria is repositioning themselves on the hill. There's just too much French infantry. They're just not going to be able to hold this position. And some more Austrian infantry units are coming up to support. Austria really should still be retreating here. If they've got more units, coming up for support, they should really be coming up on top of this hill. Let's see if we can see the high ground here. This would be the ideal place to fight if you're Austria. This hill over here is the ideal place to fight if you're Austria for the height advantage. Right here, you're just, you're getting outflanked. You don't have the numerical superiority, so you need some other type of advantage. And your troops the Austrian troops are already routing. And this is an unnecessary. This is an unnecessary loss of infantry. They didn't need to be in this position. We've got a good cav charge coming in on a French unit that cannot form square. They've got a second infantry unit, French infantry unit here that can't form square. They're having to retreat their line infantry, which I'm a little shocked about because there's not much supporting infantry by Austria until I turn here and I see some more infantry coming down. This is an excellent charge here by Austria. They're able to rout a French infantry unit, get some casualties in, force France to retreat. Well done. Well done. You were able to delay the French advancement long enough for some extra support to come. Unfortunately, as I was saying, they should have just moved these guys back beforehand. That way they wouldn't have been in a position where they had to have the cavalry charge, and they'd have the higher ground at the moment. And maybe they'd be able to defeat at least a flank of France, while this other flank, while this other flank needs to take its time to get in position. So right now there's just two separated units, so if he pushed these 4-5 line units against these two, he can get them at the flank, get some nice casualties in there, force France back at least, maybe give his own troops a break. And Austria really should be pushing on this flank. They really should be pushing right here, because they'd have the advantage. They'd be forcing France to kind of line up with them instead, or at least they'd be able to take some shots onto the side of this grenadier unit. Not only that, but they've got this dragoon unit, this Austrian dragoon unit. It's threatening the flank of France, so it's forcing France to keep their attention on this side. Meanwhile, if they push up their infantry against this side, they have this superiority here. They have the advantage on this side, and I'm not sure that Austria is thinking that way, or they see it, because the more time they let pass, the more time France is able to shift reinforcements over to this right side, and they're able to redeploy their army in order to match this Austrian flank from any threat. Meanwhile, this is what I was talking about, the French players. I believe this is Lens, Messina. It looks like the Imperial Guard General is still around. I don't know if he's got any more units left besides his general, but this is what I was talking about, taking this hill. If you can see, France recognizes the importance of this high ground. And so they're shifting their units to take this high ground so that they don't have to fight France, or at least try and fight the least amount of Austrian units as possible at a disadvantage. Once they take this high ground, they can at least fight them on a level playing field, or level battlefield, I guess technically. And for some reason, these dragoons are just being shot at. They're just letting themselves be shot at by French infantry. Not really sure why. And there's some artillery position to shoot at these guys. They're just not moving. I'm not really sure why. Maybe Austria just doesn't realize. Maybe he's too concentrated on the other side of the battle to realize that these dragoons are being shot at. Most likely just going to break here in a moment. Yep, there they go. You can see his line is not, the Austrian line is not really in a good position. It's kind of messy. It needs to fold its line back here, maybe extend some more infantry. But really what it needs to be doing is probably retreating. But he's by himself. He's surrounded, essentially, or going to be at least. He's going to be enveloped on one side. There's going to be some artillery that's going to come up on his flank, I imagine. Or at least somewhere along the line if now the cavalry is routed. He really should take these supporting units, this reserve, I should say, and kind of change their position. And it looks like he's realizing it. Unfortunately, he should have been doing this a lot sooner. He should have been just pushing towards the hill. I know I've said it a million times already, but it's just discouraging when I see people miss opportunities, not take advantage of certain situations. And like I was saying earlier, this game, it's not as micro-intensive as like a lot of modern real-time strategy games. But at the same time, it is still micro-intensive because the lines are so long and they're in the battlefield, your vision of the battlefield can be narrowed at some times. It can be difficult to keep your concentration on all your units at one time. Let's take a little closer look. Austria should be bending these units back. He should be reforming these units so that they just don't take fire from the side. You might be a little discouraged seeing that there's a ton of French infantry now upon the hill. Now France is trying to go for a little more flanking on the left. And this is just a beautiful battle. Seeing all the musket fire, the crack of the guns. It's nice to see, nice to hear. Just one more reason why I really love this mob. And it doesn't get old. It never... The sound of the muskets firing, the views of the battle, never gets old. And it looks like France is routing some Austrian units already. Again, I'm not really sure why these guys are just kind of just out there. They should be folding back. I mean, Austria probably realizes there's no way that they can defeat France at this point. Look at all these French units. Just gorgeous. Now France is finally going into the charge. Looking to finish off what's left of Austria. Oh, good volley. And they were able to, Austria was able to rout its aggressors here. It's just not enough here. France is charging in with everything it's got. It's the end here for Austria. And kudos to Austria. They were able to defeat the initial French army that was on this side. I believe that was Ney. Unfortunately, looks like they just took too many casualties and they're just facing too many French infantry left in order for them to be able to hold on this side. But, yeah, kudos to Austria for trying. It looks like France easily has the point total here. They've got the armies left. There's a couple Austrian units here that may have returned from routing or just holding the house. So that's pretty much going to be the battle. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the end. All right. So good game to everybody. Go over the totals here. So Stan was playing the Massena Corps for France, and he had 1,437 kills. Ney was commanded by EC Drogostaff, ADC, and he had 1,297 kills. Seedman was commanding the Lands Corps with 1,595 kills. And for the Imperial Guard was Jesus 60 with 636 kills. And for the Austrians, or the Coalition Army, the 1st Austrian Corps, I don't remember all the names, forgive me, was Ed Kingman 2018 with 1,003 kills. The 2nd Austrian player was Honorable Memba, which had a total of 636 kills. Homelander was playing the Russian army with 325 kills. And this weird double S letter here, or whatever you call it, had 1,061 kills. I'm not, forgive me, I don't know what the name of this symbol is. And so here are the kills for one of the French corps here. Just do a quick scroll so you can see it. 273 was the top kills. Looks like it was a general unit. And there you have it. All right, thanks everybody watching. Go ahead, look for the next one, and if you want to be a part of the tournament that I'm sponsoring, there'll be some more information available on that.